Welcome to Beyond the Call, Medal of Honor Stories, the podcast where we bring you the incredible true stories of the bravest soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines in American history. Each episode, we dive deep into the lives, battles, and heroic actions of those who have earned the Medal of Honor, the highest military award for valor in the United States. Our goal is to honor these extraordinary individuals by sharing their stories in a way that is both engaging and informative. Through these episodes, we'll explore the battles they fought, the decisions they made under fire, and the lasting impact of their courage. Some of these heroes made the ultimate sacrifice, while others continued to serve long after the war ended. Each of them went beyond the call of duty, and their stories deserve to be told and remembered. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Spreading these stories helps ensure that the sacrifices and heroism of these Medal of Honor recipients are never forgotten. You can also visit trackpads.com for more military history, photos, videos, and additional podcast episodes. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's dive into another story of incredible bravery on Beyond the Call, Medal of Honor Stories. Donald E. Rudolph Senior, Bravery at Muñoz, Luzon. The battlefield was chaos, smoke filled the air, bullets tore through the streets, and the men of the 6th Infantry Division were pinned down, unable to move forward. Japanese forces had turned the town of Muñoz into a fortress of concrete bunkers, machine gun nests, and even armored vehicles. The American advance was grinding to a halt. Then one soldier stood up. With only his rifle, grenades, and a simple tool, a pickmatic, Technical Sergeant Donald E. Rudolph charged forward. He tore open enemy bunkers, wiped out machine gun positions, and even climbed on top of a Japanese tank, dropping a grenade inside to destroy it. His actions did not just save his unit, they turned the tide of the battle. Today we're diving into the story of Donald E. Rudolph Senior, a soldier whose fearless actions in the Battle of Luzon in the Philippine Islands earned him the Medal of Honor. His bravery on February 5, 1945 near Muñoz was not just a single act of heroism, it was a turning point in one of the most important battles of World War II. This is a story of courage, leadership, and a soldier who refused to back down when it mattered most. Historical context. By early 1945, World War II in the Pacific was reaching its final and most brutal phase. The United States and its allies were pushing the Japanese Empire back, island by island, in a relentless series of amphibious assaults. One of the most important battles in this campaign was the liberation of the Philippine Islands. The islands had been under Japanese occupation since 1942, and taking them back was more than just a strategic move. It was a mission to sever Japanese supply lines, secure a critical base for future operations, and fulfill a promise made by General Douglas MacArthur, who had vowed to return after being forced to leave the islands 3 years earlier. The Battle of Luzon, which began on January 9, 1945, was one of the largest battles of the Pacific War. General MacArthur led a massive invasion force onto the shores of Luzon, the largest and most important island in the Philippines. The American 6th Army, which included the 6th Infantry Division, landed with overwhelming firepower. However, the Japanese forces, under the command of General Tomoyuki Yamashita, had no intention of engaging the Americans in a conventional beach assault. Instead, they retreated into fortified positions, in cities, mountains, and dense jungles, preparing for a long and brutal defensive fight. One of the strongest defensive positions was the town of Muñoz. The Japanese had transformed the town into a nearly impenetrable stronghold. Buildings, bunkers, and even destroyed tanks were turned into defensive positions, creating an urban battlefield that would require fierce close-quarters combat to overcome. The town was positioned along key roads leading to Manila, making it a strategic location that had to be taken for the American advance to continue. The battle for Muñoz was shaping up to be a fight that would test the limits of the American forces. Donald E. Rudolph's unit, the 2nd Battalion of the 20th Infantry Regiment, part of the 6th Infantry Division, was given the task of breaking through the Japanese defenses. The regiment had already fought in the brutal jungles of New Guinea before being sent to the Philippines. Now they found themselves in one of the toughest fights of the Luzon campaign. The enemy was dug in, machine guns covered every approach, and the battlefield had turned into a deadly maze of gunfire and explosions. For days, the Americans struggled to push forward, and it became clear that breaking through the Japanese lines would require something extraordinary. That is where Technical Sergeant Donald E. Rudolph stepped in. On February 5, 1945, in the middle of the chaos and destruction, he made a choice that would change the course of the battle. Personal background. Donald D. Rudolph Senior was born on February 21, 1921, in the small town of South Haven, Minnesota. Like many who grew up during the Great Depression, he likely experienced hardship from an early age. While there is little public information about his early years, we do know that by the time the United States entered World War II, he had already chosen to serve. In 1941, just months before the attack on Pearl Harbor, he enlisted in the United States Army, setting him on a path that would lead him to some of the fiercest battles of the Pacific War. Rudolph was assigned to the 6th Infantry Division, a unit that would become known for its grueling jungle warfare experience. His specific assignment was with the 20th Infantry Regiment, where he proved himself as a reliable and skilled leader. As a technical sergeant, he was responsible for leading his fellow soldiers in combat, ensuring their effectiveness in battle, and making tactical decisions under pressure. By the time his division landed on Luzon, he had already seen intense fighting, but nothing could prepare him for what he would face at Muñoz. After the war, Rudolph continued his service in a different way. Instead of returning to a quiet civilian life, he chose to remain in the United States Army Reserves, serving until 1963. But his dedication to his fellow veterans did not stop there. He worked for the Veterans Administration, spending his career ensuring that those who had fought for their country received the care and support they needed. He retired in 1976, closing a chapter of service that lasted far beyond the battlefield. Donald D. Rudolph Senior passed away on May 25, 2006, at the age of 85. He was laid to rest at Fort Snelling National Cemetery in Minneapolis, Minnesota, among the ranks of those who had served with honor. His legacy, however, did not end with his passing. A stretch of Highway 7 in Minnesota was renamed the Donald Rudolph Medal of Honor Scenic Byway, ensuring that his name and his heroism would be remembered by future generations. Medal of Honor Citation. Now, let's hear the official Medal of Honor citation awarded to Second Lieutenant Donald E. Rudolph Senior for his extraordinary bravery during the Battle of Munoz, Luzon, on February 5, 1945. Rank and organization: Second Lieutenant, United States Army, Company E, 20th Infantry, 6th Infantry Division. Place and date: Muñoz, Luzon, Philippine Islands, February 5, 1945. Citation: Second Lieutenant Rudolph, who was then a technical sergeant, was acting as a platoon leader at Muñoz, Luzon, in the Philippine Islands. While administering first aid on the battlefield, he saw enemy fire coming from a nearby culvert. Crawling forward with his rifle and grenades, he engaged the enemy at close range, killing 3 Japanese soldiers concealed inside. He then worked his way across open ground toward a line of enemy pillboxes that had completely immobilized his company. Nearing the first pillbox, he threw a grenade through its firing slit and immediately charged the position. With his bare hands, he tore away the wood and tin covering, then dropped another grenade inside, killing the enemy gunners and destroying their machine gun. Ordering several riflemen to cover his next move, Second Lieutenant Rudolph seized a pick mattock and advanced toward the second pillbox. He used the mattock to pierce the top of the fortification, then dropped a grenade through the hole. After firing several rounds from his rifle into the opening, he ensured no survivors remained by sealing the hole in the firing slit with earth. In rapid succession, he attacked and neutralized 6 more pillboxes, clearing a path for his company to advance. Later in the battle, when an enemy tank attacked his platoon, he advanced under covering fire, climbed onto the top of the tank, and pried open its turret hatch. He then dropped a white phosphorus grenade inside, destroying the crew and eliminating the threat. Through his outstanding heroism, courage, and leadership, and with complete disregard for his own safety, Second Lieutenant Rudolph cleared a path for an advance that led to one of the most decisive victories of the Philippine campaign. This citation speaks for itself. In just a few minutes of intense combat, Donald E. Rudolph single-handedly eliminated multiple enemy strongholds and even took down a tank, leading his unit to victory. His actions went beyond bravery; they were the turning point of the battle. Let's break down exactly what happened on that battlefield, step by step, In the next section, the Battle and Medal of Honor actions. By the time Donald D. Rudolph Senior found himself in the streets of Muñoz, Luzon, the battle had already turned into a brutal fight for every inch of ground. The Japanese defenders had transformed the town into a fortress, with interlocking machine gun nests, reinforced bunkers, and hidden pillboxes that made it nearly impossible for American troops to advance. The men of the 2nd Battalion, 20th Infantry Regiment, 6th Infantry Division were pinned down, unable to move forward without taking devastating casualties. Something had to be done, and Rudolph took it upon himself to act. The first enemy position he took out was a culvert, a low passage where 3 Japanese soldiers had set up a deadly firing position. Rudolph crawled forward under heavy fire, using his rifle and grenades to take them out at close range. With that threat neutralized, he turned his attention to a line of pillboxes, fortified bunkers that had been stopping his company's advance. These pillboxes were reinforced structures designed to withstand small arms fire, meaning standard rifle shots would do little against them. Instead of waiting for heavier firepower, Rudolph decided to attack them himself. He rushed the first pillbox, throwing a grenade through its firing slit, then immediately charged forward. With no regard for his own safety, he ripped open the wooden and tin covering of the pillbox with his bare hands, then dropped another grenade inside. The explosion wiped out the machine gunners inside and silenced the position. But he didn't stop there. Rudolph then grabbed a pickmatic, a tool used for digging, and went after the second pillbox. He punched a hole in the top of the bunker with the matic, dropped a grenade through the opening, and then fired his rifle into the hole to ensure the enemy inside was eliminated. To prevent any survivors from re-manning the position, he sealed the opening with dirt before moving on. This method proved so effective that he used it on 6 more pillboxes, personally clearing out 8 heavily fortified enemy positions in total. Even after that incredible display of heroism, the battle was not over. As the American troops moved forward, a Japanese tank suddenly appeared, threatening to wipe out Rudolph's entire platoon. He knew that rifles and grenades would not be enough to stop an armored vehicle. Without hesitation, he charged the tank, under covering fire from his fellow soldiers, climbed onto the top, and forced open the turret hatch. Then, using a white phosphorus grenade, he dropped it inside, instantly killing the crew and disabling the tank. Because of Donald E. Rudolph's actions, his company was able to advance and finally break through the Japanese defenses. What had been a stalemate turned into a decisive victory, and the battle for Munoz was won. His heroism had not only saved the lives of his fellow soldiers, but had played a critical role in the larger Battle of Luzon, bringing the United States one step closer to victory in the Pacific. Reflections and lessons learned. The story of Donald E. Rudolph Senior is more than just a tale of battlefield heroics. It is a lesson in leadership, courage, and decisive action under pressure. In the middle of a battle where hesitation could mean disaster, Rudolph chose to act. He saw a problem, took the initiative, and led the charge. His actions at Muñoz, Luzon, were not just an example of bravery, but a reminder that in the most difficult moments, one person's decision can change everything. Rudolph's leadership is especially remarkable because he was not the highest-ranking soldier in his unit at the time. He was a technical sergeant. Yet when his men were pinned down, he took responsibility and led the way. This is what true leadership looks like, not just issuing orders, but taking action when it matters most. Whether in battle, in business, or in everyday life, the ability to step up and take charge is what separates leaders from bystanders. His story also teaches us the importance of improvisation and adaptability. He did not have access to the ideal weapons or tools to break through the enemy's defenses, but that did not stop him. He used what he had, a pickmatic, grenades, and his rifle, to do what needed to be done. This is a lesson that applies far beyond the battlefield. No matter the situation, having the ability to think fast, use available resources, and find solutions under pressure can make the difference between success and failure. Finally, Rudolph's commitment to service did not end when the war was over. After earning the Medal of Honor, he could have left military life behind, but instead he continued to serve in the United States Army Reserves and later worked for the Veterans Administration. He understood that the duty of a soldier does not stop when the fighting ends, supporting and caring for those who served is just as important as the battles themselves. His lifelong dedication to his fellow veterans is a powerful example of what it means to serve not just in war, but in life. Closing. The story of Donald E. Rudolph Senior is one of extraordinary bravery, leadership, and self-sacrifice. In the chaos of the Battle of Munoz, he did not hesitate. With his company pinned down and the mission at risk, he took action, charging through enemy fire, dismantling heavily fortified bunkers, and even taking out a Japanese tank by himself. His courage cleared the way for the American forces to advance, and his actions played a pivotal role in the success of the Battle of Luzon. For his heroism, he received the Medal of Honor, but his legacy did not end there. His commitment to service continued long after the war, ensuring that those who fought alongside him and those who came after were cared for and remembered. Rudolph's story challenges us to reflect on what it truly means to lead. Leadership is not just about holding a high rank or having authority. It is about taking responsibility when it matters most. Whether on the battlefield, in a workplace, or in daily life, the ability to step up, take action, and inspire others to follow is what makes a true leader. His actions also remind us that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. That wraps up this episode of Beyond the Call, Medal of Honor Stories. We hope this story of courage and sacrifice has left you with a deeper appreciation for the extraordinary men and women who have gone beyond the call of duty. Their actions remind us that true heroism is about more than bravery. It is about service, sacrifice, and an unshakable commitment to others. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the podcast to help keep these stories alive. You can also visit trackpass.com, where we are armored in facts and driven by stories. There you'll find more military history, photos, videos, and additional podcast episodes covering the battles and warriors that shaped history. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for another unforgettable story of heroism on Beyond the Call, Medal of Honor Stories.